Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Another day, another loss. The hangover ensues, my friends, and the losing hangover definitely feels a little bit worse than the alcoholic hangover, I must say. But now we're looking forward. We have a couple segments we want to talk about today. The first one being, who should be fired first for the Giants? Is there one person? Is there two people? We want to give some insight into that, some answers to that, and to what we think they should do. Of course, we have an injury updates on Blake Martinez, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. Some of them not so good. And then, we do want to talk about, John Mara, his impact in this, and two standout players, one on offense, one on defense. And there were some good moments in that game against the Falcons, which obviously ended up in a loss, but some individual performances. And what I told Anthony before this is you can't have just individual standout performers, right? You have to have a team that's built on, winning together and playing well together. There needs to be cohesiveness, needs to be chemistry. And it feels like everyone's playing an individual game on a team in a team sport. And that's a problem. I hate talking about individual performances in a loss because it means that the entire team as a total did not play up to standard. They didn't play as a unit. But we're going to talk about two players that, really showed a lot, and it's worth talking about because they are young guys who do have a future on this team. But Anthony, before we dive into all this mostly bad stuff, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing okay. It's a really painful loss yesterday, especially considering that the Giants suffered an additional loss this morning with Blake Martinez done for the year with a torn ACL. That's a huge loss for the Giants defense, but if we are trying to look at some of the positives, there were some good players on the defensive side of the ball for the Giants yesterday. Tae Crowder had a career game, according to Pro Football Focus, filling in for Blake Martinez. So if there is any way to feel okay after that, you could say Tae Crowder might be a better player than we gave him credit for initially. Seems like he's really come into his own and started to develop. But it is a very tough time to be a Giants fan. There's a lot of disarray and a lot of confusion amongst the fan base, who to point the blame at. No one knows exactly who is at fault, but really, largely, there is a huge top-to-bottom problem with the Giants right now, ownership all the way to the coaching staff to the players. So it's really not a pretty time to be a Giants fan. It's getting ugly out here, but we're here to continue to give you updates and hopefully provide a little bit of positivity.
Yeah, this is a team that is fundamentally broken, right? We've seen a lot of bad games over the past couple of years. Dave Gettleman's tenure here has been an absolute disaster. I'm tired of him. I'm ready to move on. And if we're talking about the first person who I would want to fire, it's Dave Gettleman because he's the headmaster of the entire thing, right? He's the one that hired Joe Judge and helped hire Jason Garrett and helped bring in all these guys. So at the end of the day, who is to blame here? Who's the guy that is the ringleader of it all? It has to be, of course, John Mara's the guy at the top, but we can't fire John Mara, so the next guy in line has to be Dave Gettleman. We need a younger GM who's not living in the prehistoric era, as I said last night, a guy that isn't going to rely on a number 2 overall pick in a running back to lead your offense. It's just, that's not the modern way anymore. And as much as I love Saquon, it's just unfortunately a misallocation of value and picks. And I think the Giants, and this is a crazy thing to know, the Giants, since Dave Gettleman's been our general manager, the Giants have had the most draft capital out of any team to correct their mistakes, and he has yet to do that. His third-round picks are abysmal. Like, you don't even understand. Third-round picks are supposed to be value picks. You're supposed to get some good players every now and then out of those guys. His players, BJ Hill, who they traded for our worst offensive lineman, right? Billy Price is our worst offensive lineman. We traded BJ Hill. He was a reserve for us. Lorenzo Carter, who's pretty much non-existent. Ocean Eximens, who didn't even get a snap against the Falcons. Who else? We have Matt Pert, who hasn't had a snap this year at either. And they still have Nate Solder, the turnstile at right tackle. Makes no sense logically to me. And then we have Aaron Robinson, we just drafted, who's on IR. We have a lot of third-round picks, and none of them have become players who we can actually depend on week in and week out. You think about it, Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the league, was drafted in the third round, right? And he was picked after, I think, BJ Hill, right after.
There was 3 selections after BJ Hill.
Right after BJ Hill. So talk about, misallocation of resources, bad scouting, bad drafting, right? On our first-round picks, don't even get me started. Kadarius Toney barely playing. He touched the ball twice yesterday, and he looked great with the ball in his hands. But again, let's just avoid him the rest of the game. I was begging for a couple bubble screens, get him the ball in space. These Falcons players are terrible tacklers, terrible secondary guys. They were missing their top guy. Get the ball to your weapons and let them make plays. And the Giants simply didn't do that. And Jason Garrett, if there's another guy who needs to be fired today, I'm roping him in with Dave Gettleman. Him and Dave Gettleman need to be fired as a package deal, because at the end of the day, Jason Garrett really, really, really took a step back against the Falcons. After Washington game where the offense was running RPOs, was running read options, was doing a lot of good stuff, putting up 29 points, he took it all out of the playbook. And it couldn't, and you're not going to convince me it was because Sterling Shepard wasn't on the field. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why they're not using their players to their strengths. Daniel Jones, let him run the football. That is what he's good at. Aside from being a quarterback, he's really fast. He can execute on those read options on the left side specifically. There was a couple opportunities that I pointed out on the play action where Jones rolled out and there was nobody there. And I'm like they obviously have to be seeing this. Why aren't they running the read option? Like, why aren't they doing it? Because we're seeing it in the field. We're seeing tons of open space that Falcons are literally not even bothering to stop that read option if they were going to roll it out on a play action or whatever. It's just bad, man. All around bad. So, Anthony, is it Gettleman, is it Garrett, or is it a package deal?
Yeah, it's definitely a package deal in that regard, but my solution is a little bit more complex. Not really just fire Dave Gettleman and find his replacement. Mine is kind of more similar to what the Mara family had to do years ago. All of the old listeners listening to this probably know what I'm talking about. There was a time where the Maras were the sole owner of the New York Giants. Their business operations got so bad that they brought in another partial owner, 49% owner, minority owner, Steve Tisch. The Tisch family came in and they fixed the business portion of the Giants, fixed the business operations. I think it's time for John Mara to recognize that he's no longer fit to do the football operations, and it's time for him to hire someone to do that for him. He can step back. He can still be the owner of the team, profit from the team, be the main guy in charge technically, but he shouldn't be running things anymore. He should bring someone else in to find a new GM, to find a new head coach, have someone basically be the de facto owner, the vice president of football operations above the general manager. It can't be John Mara anymore. He has ruined this team over the past decade. He has run this team into the ground. We are the new Cleveland Browns. Like, we are worse than the Browns right now. The Browns got better before us, and we were in better shape than the Browns were 3 years ago. And somehow we are way worse than the Browns. So let that sit with you. Ponder that and think about what John Mara can do to fix that. It's not as simple as just firing Dave Gettleman and hiring a new general manager. Do you really trust John Mara to hire another general manager? He's probably going to just hire Kevin Abrams or another one of his buddies. It's nepotism amongst the John Mara branch. It's time for him to look into bringing someone in to make these decisions for him, because clearly he cannot make these decisions on his own. So that's really where I sit. If we're going to come up with any solutions, come up with any people that need to be fired, John Mara needs to fire himself from the role that he's in and replace himself with someone new, someone far more worthy and more capable of succeeding in that position.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what needs to happen, because at the end of the day, the whole Mara family, Chris, John, they're way too involved in the football portion, and they don't know anything about football, it seems. Like, Chris Mara was head over heels in love with Saquon Barkley. And, a lot of people were, but nobody was going to pick him as second overall, and I think that's the major problem here. The Giants were committed. They didn't, they get in way over their heads, these guys, these Maras, and even Gettleman, because he's the same way, these emotional kind of factors in the Giants organization. They fall in love with players, and it's done from then on out. Right? They fall in love with a player and it's over. They don't care about anything else. They don't pick up the phone. This is the first year that they were like, okay, let's actually consider trading back. And I think that had a lot to do with Joe Judge personally. But I really don't think that the Giants are in a place right now where we can trust the ownership, because they're way too involved. And John Mara, after the game, throwing shit around and throwing a temper tantrum, tells me that he's a child inside that is trying to really, I guess, build a team on his own, trying to do things his way. And he's all upset because it's not working his way. His privileged life has led him down a road where he thinks he can just, he's going to be successful building this team, this organization, and he has failed miserably. His Wellington Mara is probably sitting there in his grave right now, knocking on the casket door, trying to get out to help his son, because it's actually crazy to see how far he's driven this team into the dumps, man. They don't play as a team. The coaching staff is flawed. They make really bad in-game decisions a lot, all the time. They have coordinators, specifically Garrett, who somehow, for whatever reason, has a great game and then doesn't do anything to execute the next day or the next week. Like, when you have 10 days off of rest, you coming off a good game, you scored 29 points against a defense that blows the Falcons defense out of the water, and you don't do any of the same things. You avoid your player strengths. It really shows me that there's fundamental flaws. Their strategy, their game plan is garbage. They tried to win time of possession to win this game. They tried to get long drives, run the football, and that's not bad against better opponents. But the Falcons are a bad opponent. Take shots downfield. Like, just go for it. The Giants didn't take a field goal on the 39-yard line with Graham Gano. Unbelievable decision-making here. Like, what are you supposed to do? What are we supposed to say when you're making decisions that fans and Twitter GMs are making for you that are way better, and we're sitting here like, something needs to change. It needs to change very soon, and it starts with firing Dave Gettleman. I think Zach Rosenblatt today was like, according to one of his sources or whatnot, the Giants are looking to make changes in the front office soon. So who knows what that looks like, at the end of the season. But the problem is, the other side of that is, if you fire Dave Gettleman now, you have to ride out the rest of the season with Kevin Abrams probably as your general manager, and then go to hire somebody else. Who knows who that might be? It could be, I don't know, it could be Daniel Jeremiah. It could be of a host of different guys. There's tons of different options, but at the end of the day, Mara, like Anthony said, needs to take a step back. He needs to realize that this is not his job. Like, he is not a good personnel scout. He's not good at finding coaches. He's not good at finding general managers. He needs to hire a third party, right? He needs to hire a third party to come in and help him find and execute the decision to actually find another GM, like the Texans did. They completely ignored him. They completely ignored the third party, but John Mara cannot be entrusted with this anymore. He cannot be trusted to be hiring these guys. They need to bring in a third party to do this for him. And I think that attests to what Anthony's saying in terms of they need a vice president to come in and somebody that's really going to help turn this team over and not, run it further into the ground. They can't get much worse, right? That's my thing. If they were to just blow it up right now, trade a couple of those guys like Evan Ingrams and Sterling Shepherds and whatnot, they really couldn't get much worse than they are right now. So why not just do it? Everyone's saying it's going to click eventually. I don't think it is. We just suffered huge injuries to Blake Martinez, torn ACL, done for the year. Sterling Shepard, hamstring injury. He could be done for a couple of weeks. And then, of course, you have Darius Slayton. Of course, that's another injury. The only positive I can come out of these injuries is that Carter Coughlin's going to get more playing time, which I really want to see him play more middle linebacker. And I also think that David Sills is going to come up. So David Sills' army, maybe this is your chance to see him play. And this is his chance to really make a name for himself. Colin Johnson, the reserve wide receiver we got from Jacksonville after they cut him, had a tremendous game. He had a couple catches, 5-6 catches for 50 yards plus. He looked great. I think he's going to be a good player for us moving forward. But at the end of the day, Kadarius Toney, 2 touches, man. Got to get him the ball more. They're doing nothing to help this team, Anthony. Do you have anything else to say before we move on to the standout players we want to talk about?
I think I'm ready for the standout players just because this is so negative and it's kind of hurting my soul to continue to discuss this topic. But really, there are a lot of problems, especially in the front office. As Zach Rosenblatt said, they're looking to make front office changes. Good. I hope that they do. I hope they make them very soon. The Giants have not had a winning record since 2016. It's time to make some serious changes. If they don't, it's just going to continue. All the losing, all of the heartbreak after every Sunday or Monday or Thursday, it's going to continue. So it's time for the Giants to just make some changes.
I agree. And the first standout player we're going to talk about is left tackle Andrew Thomas, who has had a great start to his sophomore season. When we're looking at Andrew Thomas last year, his first 3 games were bad. He gave up 1 sack, 2 QB hits, 9 hurries, and 13 pressures over his first 3 games. So far this season, he's only given up 5 pressures and 5 hurries in that same sample size. So a really, really great step forward for this left tackle situation for the Giants. He is a long-term player for them, I believe. And I will say, having that bookend left tackle is a really good thing to have. If you're the Giants, you're like, you know what? We have the first overall pick. We have the second, third overall pick. We're going with a quarterback. Maybe Malik Wills. Maybe it's Sam Howell. Maybe it's somebody else. Stay far away as possible from Spencer Rattler. I don't trust that guy with an orange peel. I think that there's some quarterbacks that could end up being a good draft selections this upcoming year. If they want to stick with Daniel Jones, so be it. They have their left tackle and Andrew Thomas. I think that's the most important part of that offensive line. But the right tackle spot still needs to be solved, which is where that Bears pick might come in big handy this upcoming year. If they give us with the top 10 pick, top 15 pick, you better believe a right tackle is going to be on the board for us. So we will be taking it because Nate Solder, bro, it gives me the heebie-jeebies every time I watch this guy play. It makes me want to go to Trader Joe's and check out of the turnstile line. It's unbelievable because I know I'm going to get through right away. So, Andrew Thomas, though, really, 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 really happy to see him taking that big step forward. And that's our first guy on the offensive side to really talk about right now.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Andrew Thomas. I think regardless of what happens going forward, the Giants do have their franchise left tackle. That's how I feel. I thought towards the end of last season he started to prove that, but hadn't fully proven it because the beginning of last season was so rough. A lot of inconsistencies as a rookie, but you kind of expect that from a rookie offensive lineman. Year two, though, he's gotten off to a really strong start despite playing with a horrible offensive line around him, really. I mean, if you look at the left guard position in a vacuum and you say, that is horrible. Why is Andrew Thomas playing next to those players, right? Shane Lemieux, and half injured Shane Lemieux, Ben Bredesen, and then Nick Gates was struggling there before he got injured as well. Everyone that's played next to Andrew Thomas has been far below average. Andrew Thomas doesn't have any help on the left side of the line unless they put a tight end over there to chip with him, which occasionally they do. But through these 3 games, Andrew Thomas ranks 4th in pressure rate allowed at 2.5% when you exclude RPOs, screens, and play actions. So you're talking about just one-on-one pass sets where he is pass blocking a defensive lineman.
A lot for us.
Only 2.5% pressure rate, which is really, really good. It's 4th best in the NFL. And that is actually the statistic that determines like good offensive line play. That's the number one that the analytics guys like to use to determine whether or not an offensive lineman is playing at a high level. It's when you remove the RPOs, play action, and everything like that, because those make it easier to pass protect. So on the toughest pass protecting plays, Andrew Thomas is dominating them, which is a great sign for him, for the Giants, and for the future of this team. We don't know where the future is headed for this team right now. We have no idea what direction we're going in. We're all kind of sitting in limbo, just waiting to find out. But regardless, we do have one constant through all of this, and it's that we do have a good, young left tackle to build around on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and shifting over to the defensive side where we have one player we do want to speak about. This is the thing. The defense didn't play that bad yesterday, right? Despite losing Blake Martinez, the defense didn't play a bad game. They had a couple of bad plays here and there. They allowed 17 points, and 14 points through 4 quarters is not bad. I mean, they scored 25 against the Buccaneers last week, so holding them to 14 points isn't a bad number by any means. But what I will say is, it's the missed opportunities. Adoree Jackson dropping an interception in the red zone. Got to make that play. Logan Ryan missed 2 interceptions. He dropped 2 interceptions. We were there. We were like, I jumped up out of my seat going crazy because I thought it was going to be a pick, and he dropped them both. The Adoree Jackson one, I was at a loss of words. I was so mad. That's points. That's points for the Falcons. That's the difference. If Adoree Jackson catches that ball, it's game over. We win that game. It shifts some momentum, stops them from scoring. And unfortunately, he was unable to make that play, and we lost the game probably because of it. And that's the thing, though. Like, you can't say people will go, "Oh, it's a team game, right? It's a team sport. We lose as a team, we win as a team. Not one single play is the reason that we lost a game." But if you look at the Packers last night, right? What was the one? What if you ask anyone, why did the Packers win that game? Right? Because Aaron Rodgers made 2 throws at the end of the game to slice and dice that defense of the 49ers and get into field goal position. That's what they will point to say how they won that game. Not anything else, but those 2 throws that he made to get into field goal position. If we're going to point at if we're going to take that logic and apply it to our losses, it's Adoree Jackson dropping an interception. It's Logan Ryan dropping an interception. It's Cordarrelle Patterson going 60 yards on a wide receiver screen on the first play on the final drive of the game to get into field goal range with a minute left. You know what I mean? The Giants let them win. But the defense didn't play altogether bad the entire time. It's just the offense can't score enough, man. The offense is so bad. And most of it is schematics, right? Anyone that has anything to say about Jason Garrett being a good play caller, anything in terms of, it's not Jason Garrett's fault, you clearly don't understand, because you should go watch Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Kellen Moore. Go watch all these other offenses. We have just as much talent. Right? We have the Kenny Gallaudays. We have the Saquons, the Daniel Jones, and the read option. We have good players, Sterling Shepard. We have good talent, but we still cannot score. That is a schematics issue. We have the talent to be a good team. Like, go look at the Lions, for Christ's sake, right now. And Jared Goff and his lack of talent. It's Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift. and TJ Hawkinson. They have no receivers. Tyrell Williams is their number one receiver. They have no receivers, none. And they're scoring 30, 40 points a game, some of these games. The Giants are putting up 14 against the worst defense in the league. It is schematics. It is route concepts. It is not going deep. If you saw what the Packers did yesterday, you see how many times Aaron Rodgers slings the ball downfield? You see how many times they give him an opportunity to score? It's because Daniel Jones has a good enough pocket to wait sometimes. You know what I mean? It's just disappointing to see the schematics continue to degrade. And I do want to talk about one specific player on defense. That is Azeez Allario, who has started off his year really, really well as a rookie. 3 sacks. He has 4 hurries and 1 QB hit. He's a good player, man. He's a long-term solution at pass rusher for us. I really believe that. 3 sacks in 3 games. That's the most any Giants rookie's ever had as a pass rusher. So I'm really excited to see how he can continue to develop, Anthony. But are you as excited as I am about Azeez? That's one of the silver linings from this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about Azeez. I've been really excited about Azeez since before he was even drafted by the Giants. I thought that he was a top 20 talent in the NFL draft, and I thought that if the Giants were to take him at 11, it wouldn't even be a stretch. Well, they ended up getting him at 50, so I thought it was an absolute steal. I kind of jumped out of my chair. Alex probably remembers. We were live streaming. I'm sure plenty of you remember as well, because we had plenty of you in that live stream watching us react. And I jumped out of my chair. I got really excited. I said, Azeez. Oh my God, I was so excited to see Azeez Allario on the Giants. And through 3 games, he has not disappointed. He has gotten 3 sacks. The sack fumble yesterday was an excellent play. A really nice pass rush move to beat the left tackle, and then he got around, blindside hit on Matt Ryan and forced the fumble. It was an awesome play. And it also could have been a really important play. It ultimately wasn't, but that was at the end of the half. The Falcons were in field goal range. If he doesn't get that sack there, they're going to score 3 points. But he gets the sack, prevents them from scoring 3 points. Long term, it didn't matter. The Giants lost anyways. But those are the plays. When we look at the 1 or 2 plays that other players make that cost us the game, that was one play that could have won us the game early in the second quarter, right? Because you look at the Logan Ryan interceptions. He catches 1 or 2 of those. We win that game probably, but he didn't. He dropped them. So we look at that. But with Azeez Allario, he made one of those plays that could have won the game. So you have to take your hat off.
That was after the Evan Ingram turnover too.
Exactly.
Right after it.
Right. The Falcons were in perfect position to score that field goal, and he prevented that. So that was a really awesome play. He's played really well. 3 sacks through 3 games. I believe the Giants' rookie record is 5.5 sacks in a rookie season. Mm-hmm. I think he's well on pace to crush that one, blow it out of the water. Yep, it's BJ Hill's record. Only because Lawrence Taylor, they weren't keeping sack totals when he was a rookie. Sure, he would have had it if they did. But it looks like Azeez Allario is on pace to break that record, which is really exciting. And I do think when we're talking about these silver linings, this is another player that long-term is a solution for the Giants at a position of need.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with this just to make your day a little bit worse. I'm just joking, but it's really depressing. Ever since the Giants hired Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator, their offense is ranked 32nd in yards to go on third down, 31st in points per game, 31st in explosive pass plays, 30th in points per drive, 28th in yards per play. How about we fire that guy to Pluto right now? Launch him from a trebuchet, medieval trebuchet. Launch him, bro, just to the moon. Out of here. I don't even understand how you've been a coach since 2020, 2004. How have you been a coach for this long and have this little to offer a team? You've been a quarterback. You've learned under North Turner. You've learned under so many people. You've literally worked with Kellen Moore, who had one of the best offenses in the league, and you took nothing away from any of them. And you're trying to install an offense that was good in the early 2000s. Dave Gettleman, Jason Garrett, prehistoric dinosaurs. Prehistoric. Honestly, they're like the first humans to ever walk the earth. You know, they're just finding their footprints now. That's how old they are. I don't understand these concepts. Like, you could find a Neanderthal with better ideas, and they can't even freaking speak. Like, honestly, it's bad, man. It's really bad. There's space on the field the Giants aren't using. No vertical concepts. Use Kadarius Toney deep. I remember I was looking at Anthony. I'm like, honestly, just run out and up, dude. There's nobody covering over the top. You run out and up. If you have DJ looking at him on that quick out and then just burst up the sideline, there's nobody there to stop him. Nobody. There's no safety. They were playing cover 1. The Falcons were playing cover 1 against us because they didn't trust our receivers, didn't trust our cornerbacks, our quarterback, didn't trust our play calling to go deep. They literally played cover 1 against us for the majority of the game. It's sad. It's a sad story. If you're a Jason Garrett apologist, reevaluate. because I promise you, it is mostly his fault. If you look at some of the better guys like, Kyle Shanahan, Anthony, we were talking yesterday, he uses pre-snap motion more than anybody else, and his offense is pretty good, pretty good offense. If you look at Sean McVay, the way that they use Cooper Kupp, everybody knows they're throwing a Cooper Kupp, everybody, but he manages to execute anyway. Deshaun Jackson, if he's on the field, everybody knows he's running 9 routes. Everybody knows he's running deep, yet they still couldn't stop him and he had 120 yards. The guy's like 60 years old. You know what I mean? The Giants need someone modern, need someone new, need someone with good ideas that will kind of be progressive in our offensive involvement, because right now we are stuck in a era that there's still bronchiosauruses walking around the earth. There's a T-Rex around the corner. This is a disaster, man. This is a disaster, and they need to understand. John Mara needs to look at this offense and say, go watch the highlights for the Rams game, man. Go watch the highlights for Green Bay. Go watch any of the highlights. Go watch any of these guys, and you physically can't you can't disagree with the idea that Jason Garrett is just outdated. It is what it is. So we need to move on from him. We need to do it today. We need to do it tomorrow. We need to do it yesterday. So guys, hope you enjoyed this little rant, this episode. Make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow for the next New York Giants episode.